Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Power of Listening interview. This is the second interview with Angi Scott. And Angi, we met at the Ultimate Experience London event. I remember we met on the Friday night and we had quite a discussion, which was lovely. You were with Matt and I was with Matt. I could have quite easily carried that on all night and the following day as well. Really enjoyed that. And we're both on Ankshaw's coaching career school together. And we spent the weekend together not long ago. And I don't... I'm not going to say too much about like what you do and what you've been doing. I don't want to give that away. I want to let you do that. But I felt an instant connection. We had lots to talk about, but on top of that, I find you like very present and like fully engaged in both listening and sharing, and it's a real calming calming presence, and just like kind of nourishing to be around. I think that's definitely something that I took away from the weekend, and what you were doing and what you have done is really inspiring as well. So before we get into some of the questions, I wondered if you'd like share a bit of that, so other people get to know about what you do as well and what you're up to.
Oh, hi, Victoria. Thank you. What an amazing introduction. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Yeah, so as Victoria said, I'm a coach on Angi School. I've been coaching for around 34 years. I'm a principle-based coach. I found the principles in the early 2000s before really any of the movements began. So unlike Victoria, I haven't been around a lot of principle people. I've kind of forged my own path. And yeah, just listening's been a huge part of what we do. Just opening that space up for the person in front of us is just, it's a gift to the person in front of us. It's so rare in life that we get the opportunity to really be listened to and heard. And I found there's a real shift that happens when someone actually really listens and creates that space for us. It's almost like it creates the space for our wisdom to come through.
I love that. I really love that. I love that you've started with that as well. I was going to ask kind of like how important listening is with your clients, but also I know you're running retreats as well, and like the listening there. So when you share that, it's almost like it creates a space for wisdom to come through. What does that mean for someone that's not been like coached or been around coaching? What do you mean by when you say that? What does someone's wisdom look like?
Wow, an amazing question. I find, especially in kind of a situation where you've got groups and you pair up people who are maybe not used to deep listening, as in deep listening being really creating a space for someone else to speak, and instead of that default we've got where where we're eager to say, oh yeah, me too, me too, me too. Oh yeah, yeah, I remember a time when I did that. And oh yeah, let me tell you about my experience of that. That's kind of where we are within society. Is we're very social. We want to jump in. We want to share our experiences. We feel like that's where the connection comes from, is those shared experiences. And when we kind of create that space where we're just listening, and after we've spoken, the pause comes in, and then something new will come up from deeper. And that's something we very, very rarely get to experience in a day-to-day normal social togetherness. So that space is it's there waiting, but it rarely gets an opportunity to really come to the surface. And that's kind of our deeper knowing when we dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I love you talking about that, because often that deeper knowing can be kind of what we're looking for, can't it? It can um it can be the like answer to something that we've been like wondering about, or it can just be kind of a deeper like feeling of maybe peace or clarity. And I I wonder if you can talk about, you did mention a little bit about how, like, when we're not listening to join in, so like me too, and part of the um be part of the conversation. Can you say a little bit more about um how deeper listening is different to that, and how someone would, you talked about creating the space for someone. What can you say any more about that?
Yeah, I can actually. Can I give you a very real example from yesterday in my own relationship with partner Matt, who you mentioned earlier. So
Yeah.
Matt's away working today. He's gone to do his last shift before Christmas, so working on the railway. And so yesterday he said to me, I really don't know what to do about logistics today. I don't know where to park my car. I don't know where to get my hotel. I just can't figure it all out. Whereas normally I'd say, I kind of jump in, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? If I was in that kind of space of social listening. Whereas I said nothing yesterday. And he paused and he said, well, maybe I could leave my car in Burton. And then he said, actually, yeah, I could do that. And then I could get a hotel in Nottingham. I could get a taxi down. And yeah, that would be really. And I'd said nothing. And just creating that space just allowed him to see the answer in the moment. Whereas he'd spent hours previously trying to figure out and no answers coming to him. And I haven't quite figured out what it is about the listening that triggers that, but it really does. We've all got this innate wisdom and intellect inside of us that quieter space really seems to tap into. Busyness of the day, when all those thoughts are buzzing round and we're distracted by this and we're distracted by that, it really seems to me like all the noise of the day blocks that quieter, deeper wisdom and knowing that is inside all of us.
Yeah, so here's a question. I absolutely love that, and it's kind of, you just get to further than you would if you were talking through it, don't you? I remember that, and this was like a few years ago, but one of my daughters was like distraught because she couldn't go to the Halloween disco because she'd been having some earache during the day, and literally she's dramatic anyway. She's considered acting as a career, and yeah, she was just flinging herself all over, but um it was proper sobbing too, like she was inconsolable. And I was just about to kind of like try and distract her, and say, well, shall I make this, and do you want this treat for afterwards? And I just thought, no, I'll just hold her, till she's finished. And um when she eventually finished, it turns out that like what she was upset about was the fact that like the next day, all her friends would go to school and they'd have been at this disco and she wouldn't, and she didn't know what to say to them. And like that just came out, and I'm quite convinced that that wouldn't have come out if I'd have kind of brought her tried to distract her, either like with food or something that we could do together. If I'd rushed past that and not just been willing to listen and be with her and stay with her until she'd finished, I don't think any of that would have come out. And then we got to talk about things she could say, and it's you can pick up from there, can't you? So I love that. I love the fact that it's not about giving people answers. If you just kind of listen and create that space for them a little bit longer, and like you say, he'd been searching like for hours, and then all of a sudden something came to him. I love that. So this next question is is a little bit of a tangent, and we can skip it if you like. But I wanted to ask, um, and what of like deep listening to ourselves? Have you got any thoughts to share on that?
Mm. Yeah, so we're often not very good at that, are we? We're often really, really caught up in absolutely everything that's going on around us. And something that's really coming up for me is speaking to a few people who work quite high up in corporate, and I have had this happen a few times, where they really worry about what's going to happen to their business, and they worry about everything within their business, what could go wrong and all of the problems that they might have to solve, and they feel like they've got to preempt them. And when they really slow down and take a look, they can see that when things really did go wrong, that's when they were able to really act in the moment and slow down and just deal with things in a way that they never thought possible. So we fill our head up with all of this. I don't know what I would do if this happened and that happened. And the reality is we really, really do in the moment when we need that listening to come up. It's just there. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what came up for me from your question.
Yeah, as you were speaking, I was like, oh my goodness, yeah, we run worst case scenarios like constantly, don't we? And actually, when things do happen, when things do go wrong, we just get on with it and fix it, don't we? It's like it's almost like the thinking about it is worse than it being there.
Yeah, in that moment, I don't know if everyone listening will kind of relate, but in that moment when we've really, really got to find something inside of us, all of that thinking can drop away. and we're just left with that very quiet space, because that's when we have to find it.
Yeah. So what would so only a couple of questions now, but for anybody listening, what would you kind of hope their main takeaway would be about the power of listening?
To just practice, to go and try it out, to go and choose someone close to you and just listen in a way you've never listened before. Just create space. Don't be ready to jump in. Just create a pause and get really, really comfortable with that silence, and just watch and listen to what else comes through from that person in front of you. And if you want to practice deep listening for yourself, come out of what's already gone, come out of what's going to happen, and just really sit in what's going on around you now and create that quiet space. And that's when that deeper, quieter, gentler thinking begins to come through.
Oh, I love that. And I'm going to leave it on that note. But before we go, I wondered if anybody wanted to get in touch with you and kind of experience more of what you're talking about, how can they do that?
Very easiest way to get hold of me is via Facebook. So I'm on Angi, Angi Scott on Facebook, and my website is angiscott.co.uk.
Right. So I'll include that below here as well. Thank you. So thank you for joining us. Um, we're doing the interviews just to bring more awareness of kind of what we're talking about when we talk about deep listening, and some of the impacts that can have, and to share the details of our event in January in Manchester. Should anybody want to hear more about that, then they can get in touch with me. But that event is specifically designed for people to experience the deep listening we're talking about, and to practice the deeper listening with others. So I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be amazing. And thank you very much for joining us. Have a beautiful Christmas, and no doubt we'll be talking soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.